It is time for the quarterfinals of the BBR. As you guys saw in the Week 7 battle and then talked about in Week 8, we have made playoffs in this league, and we're going to get to play against Owen, also known as OG Albina. If you guys are excited for today's video and the team builder that we're bringing, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you have not already. So as I said, we get to play against Owen, someone who I've known, started to get to know pretty recently, I would say over the last year or so through the Mons community. He is someone who invited me actually through Kaz to the NCP, where we actually played in Week 8 of that league. I did lose that game. I think a similar situation to the game against John Jr. last week, where I was already clinched and lost the week, unfortunately, at the very end, just due to scheduling. Kind of funny how both of those leagues have had very similar trajectories, and he is basically the reason that I'm in this league for the most part. I sent him I'm joking in the notes that I have here for this video, like a cold call email basically, where I'm like, oh, timer's back. I mean, if you got a league, let me know. I'd like to play Wi-Fi. I've lost every showdown game of my life the last year. And a spot opened up in BBR, and here we are. We're in the playoffs, and maybe we'll make Owen regret allowing me in the league this time with a big victory against him. But super excited for this game. Owen's got a really, really interesting team. Very, very threatening. As I said, he's got Champao. I alluded to that earlier, I think. Or maybe it might have been the old recording I did of this. But he's got Champao and ENAMORUS, which are two really, really insane Pokemon. But before we get into any of the team stuff, let's talk about the BBR playoff situation that we got going on here. So in our side of the bracket, the other side is John Jr. and J Bear are the two players playing into my semifinal. If I do make that win and qualify for the semifinals, if I beat Owen here. So that is the path. And then Montai, Odds, J. Ricky, and God, who's the last person? I completely forgot who the last person is. I should have known this before going in. But the other four are on the other side of the bracket. So once we get to the other side of the bracket, there's a few players, a few rematches coming up on this side of the bracket. My semifinal match will be a rematch either way if we make it. And then on the other side, we play against stuff like J. Ricky and that before. So let's not waste any more time, and let's get into the matchup itself. Big shout out, by the way, to Kaz and Gohan for helping me build and then mocking me as well this week. We did put a little bit more effort this week because this is a very, very important match. But let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into the team. So if you look at Owen's team here, Champao, ENAMORUS, that could be Terra Fairy, Ground, Glamora, Corviknight, Slitherwing, Alomomola, Mudsdale, Goodra, Ronimo, and the Hisuian Typhlosion. So there's a little bit of interesting things going on in this matchup, so let's talk about it here. So the biggest threat in this matchup is going to be the ENAMORUS. I really do not have many good fairy checks outside of the Volcarona, and he does have access to Terra Ground in this matchup, which can be used to take advantage of that. I think it's most likely going to be Terra Fairy, and that's kind of was the expectation in the builder, mainly because Terra Fairy Moonblast is, that's the only switch-in I have. If it's Terra Ground, then, my switch-ins become just a little bit better on something like the, the Cryogonal, for example. But though, in that case, I think it would probably be Terra Ground and be a physical set, which could possibly open up other avenues for Volcarona to be useful as well. I think Champao obviously is the second biggest threat. I mean, those are just two ridiculous Pokemon in combination with each other. And the thing with Champao is my answers to it are not going to be able to work very long term. You're going to see the Iron Hand set we bring, not really something that can live, super long into the game. This is going to maybe be a little bit of a quicker game. We're going to have to really, force the issue on Owen here in this game to prevent Champao and ENAMORUS from taking over and just being able to come in infinite times and just deal a billion damage to my team. So because of that, and because we're going to have to play a little bit, kind of shorten the battle a little bit, we're going to have a little bit of a reliance on lures, and we did have an Iron Hands lure set that we swapped out, but you're going to see the Uxie set as a lure set this week. So we're going to be able to use those lures as a way to kind of force Owen to make decisions he's not going to be comfortable with, and to force him into playing into that. That's one of the big advantages of using berries. And one thing that you saw me in week 2 not use correctly when we had the Colbert Uxie in that matchup against J. Ricky and his Hydreigon is you got to put the berry in a situation that they're forced to click the move into the berry. And I think this is a matchup where that's going to be a lot more probable with the Champao and the Uxie, which we'll get into in a minute. The other Pokemon that's really frustrating in this matchup, it's the Mudsdale. Iron Hands has kind of a field day in this matchup against his team, except that Mudsdale, there's really no good click against Mudsdale. There's Ice Punch, and Ice Punch is going to do around 25 to 30%. But, really after a stamina boost and such, that's just not going to be a realistic thing to do unless we've chipped that Mudsdale. And once again, I think this is going to be a little bit quicker of a battle, just by the nature of the team that Owen's got here. It's going to be very quick. So that's going to be difficult to really get that sort of, positioning in this matchup. Otherwise, I think all of his other Pokemon don't line up super great against my team. Glamora is a really good opportunity for my Palisand to come in and set up Stealth Rocks. Corviknight has a really, really tough time dealing with stuff like Volcarona, Dragapult. Slitherwing just gets completely neutralized by a Palisand. Alomomola, it is not great. And then stuff like Goodra and Rotomo are going to be really, really good as well. But, they get checked by stuff like the Dragapult as well. So Dragapult is a really, really good matchup here, but because that Enamorus, we have to be careful to not just freely drop Dracos. We have to be actually mindful with their clicks and take the right spots where they come. So that is the team preview. Let's start taking a look at the team that I brought this week. Now let's take a look at the team at a very high level. Right here you can see the win condition that we have here is Volcarona. It's going to be a Quiver Dance set. We'll get into the specifics of why this set's going to really work well in this matchup in a minute. A lot of interesting stuff going on as well. We get to bring their Cryogonal this week, not for hazard removal though, which is an interesting thing. Not really something I would have expected coming into this season, especially in playoffs. And then everything else looks a little bit standard. Uxie is pretty interesting as well. We'll get into that in a bit. But this is the high-level team. Let's get into the set-by-set details. So the Dragapult we're bringing this week is a heavy-duty boot Dragapult. Really, really important in this matchup, as it is in pretty much every matchup. A few things to note here. So you'll see here that it technically underspeeds Chien-Pao, and this is designed to creep the Chien-Pao, creeping Tauros specifically. So that's why we're at this specific speed tier for this week. And then basically the rest of the EVs, all we really need this to do is get some 2-hit KOs on Corviknight and Mudsdale. So the T-Bolt for Corviknight, Surf for Mudsdale. Basically the only 2 KOs that really matter in the EV spread this week. And then we have the rest just fills out the bulk profile of this Pokemon. The goal of Dragapult this week is basically going to be U-turning, dropping Dracos, Thunderbolting, just providing a little bit of chip damage over the course of the game, providing a way to check basically the 4 Pokemon Owen brings that are not the Chien-Pao or the Enamorus specifically. As alluded to in the initial team preview, this is the win condition for this week. Quiver Dance of Volcarona here. A lot of interesting stuff going on here. So Terra Water is the Terra type for this week, and while we don't have Terra Blast, and we're likely going to probably stay in non-Terra form, basically I wouldn't say the entire game. There's going to be situations we go to Sep to win that we look to obviously Terra up, but that's mainly going to be for applications where we want to set up on stuff like Glamora or Goodra specifically to get around some specific attacks they'll have for Volcarona in the Bug Fire form. Otherwise, we can probably just stay in the normal form and be fine. This is another way, of course, of handling the Enamorus, which is going to be a very, very problematic Pokemon in this matchup, as we talked about earlier. But once again, looking at this set, Fire Dance and Psychic, and the 92 special attack EVs here are going to be important because that'll allow me to 2-hit KO Glamora at +1. So that's one of the kind of setup opportunity moments that we have in this game, is to set up on Glamora and then 2-hit KO it at +1. And then the speed here, you're going to see this as a trend on a lot of the Pokemon. The speed is for Max Speed, Modest, Glamora, and Rotom Cut. So that's kind of the speed tier we're looking to operate a lot of our Pokemon at. We have the Chien-Pao at Tauros, and then everything else at Modest, Glamora, and Rotom Cut for the most part. Heavy Duty Boots Iron Hand is next up on the list. Volt Switch, Drain Punch, Thunder Punch, and Ice Punch. This is basically our Chien-Pao answer for the most part. Basically every time Chien-Pao comes out, we're going to bring this thing in. We're specifically EV'd with the HP and defense to make sure that we don't get 2-hit KO'd by Choice Band Adamant Chien-Pao, which is obviously, one of the biggest threats my opponent could have in this situation. Now, we look at the Dragapult, for example. That allows me to revenge it with Dragapult in certain situations, which is nice. So I don't really expect that. In the mock that we did, we had a Life Orb Qianpao come, which I think is a little bit more realistic. Prevents something like Dragapult from being able to check it afterwards, especially where Choice Band damage is pretty easy to calc on this team, with Iron Hands being the most likely check to it. 44 attack EVs. This guarantees a 2-hit KO on 48 HP ENAMORUS with T-Punch. And the reason we're predicting 48 HP ENAMORUS is that is the amount of HP provided from the speed creep on Volcarona. So that's likely the bulk that we're going to expect to see on that Pokemon in this matchup. And then the rest of the EVs can just go into special defense to make it just generally a special, a little bit more bulky on the specially defensive side if it needs to take a hit at some point from the ENAMORUS, for example. Not likely, but potentially, just in case. Colbur Berry Uxie, this is, I think, pretty obvious what this is for. This is a lure specifically to take down the Qianpao. The 44 attack adamant nature on this is basically gives us a 69% chance, which is pretty nice, to kill the Qianpao. Now, when you look at Qianpao, kind of the prediction that we think is most likely, that I think is most likely, is going to be Life Orb or some sort of, maybe Choice Band, but probably Life Orb, just because of the fact that they want to have priority against the Dragapult to prevent it from being revenged. So this will basically kill it if it is any non-choice set. So if it's Life Orb, it'll drop. If it gets Stealth Rocks up and it's not Heavy Duty Boots, it'll drop to Drain Punch as well. The calc is basically for full HP, though I expect it to take at least a little bit of chip at some point through the game, because rocks are going to be pretty easy to get up against a lot of Pokemon on his team. Some other things that are important to note: the speed here, once again, that comment that I made for Volcarona, max speed, modest, Rotom Cut, and Glimmora. That's where we're speed creeping with this. We have Mystical Power, which can take advantage of that Glimmora if we don't really need this to use it as a lure, or we just use Glimmora as a way to break through the team a little bit. And then we have Protect here, and this is specifically to protect against the Slitherwing. We prevent the first impression from being relevant in the game when this Pokemon is in. So say we're going for a Mystical Power sweep, for example. We have a high amount of HP. We can protect, make sure first impression doesn't hit us, and then go from there. We got a nickname change for the Cryogonal. We named it Lucaba. It's Collecticar now, as Lucaba is a Judas, but let's not get into that too much. Recover, Light Screen, Freeze Dry, and Flash Cannon. Interesting set here this week, so it's not actually being brought for hazard removal, which is kind of surprising. That was kind of the role it was drafted in, and that was really the role it was expected to play the majority of the season, was hazard removal. A few things that are a note here: the speed, once again, that same theme of max speed, modest, Rotom Cut, and Glimmora. The bulk spread basically allows us to live a Moonblast from Modest, Choice Scarf, Terra Fairy, and Enamorus. That prevents us from getting a 2-hit code by that, which is very, very crucial, as that's probably something that we can expect to come in this matchup. So that'll allow me to, with the Heavy Duty Boots, not have to worry about the hazards, then recover on that, or throw a Freeze Dry if relevant. Light Screen is also really good, as it prevents Glimmora from coming in on this. If I set up a Light Screen at any point and Glimmora comes in, the combination of Recover plus Flash Cannon basically means the Glimmora can never beat me. So this Pokemon, while we don't really need to remove hazards in this matchup too much, it still has a lot of utility here as being a way to answer the Enamorus and provide some niche coverage against the Glimmora. The final Pokemon here is Palossand. We need a way to set up hazards, and this is probably the best way in this matchup to set up hazards. We do have the Rocky Helmet here with Stealth Rock, Shore Up, Earth Power, and Nightshade. This is just a great hazard setter, and if you look at stuff like the Glimmora, the Slitherwing, there's a lot of opportunity in this matchup to get rocks up early. So that's why we're bringing it here. The Palossand, once again, Slitherwing can't really do much with Palossand in the game, so with the Rocky Helmet, we can give it the chip that it needs, and that allows me to bring in stuff like Dragapult or even Uxie, allow me to Mystical Power through that in the mid to late game. A few of the things that are important here: so the HP defense allows Choice Band Flare Blitz to prevent that from being a 2-hit KO. And then the Nightshade Earth Power thing here. So this is kind of interesting. So Nightshade is kind of the best way to put damage across Owen's team. And we have 24 special attack EVs, because that'll help guarantee against max HP Corviknight. If he elects to go for the Roost, the Earth Power is going to do 50%. So that's going to put him in a really, really awkward spot with Roost. If he gets in a situation where he goes to Roost, Earth Power deal half, and the Roost has basically been nullified. So that's really, really important to take a look at in this matchup. The rest of the EVs also go into spit after. There's no real use for the rest of them on the HP special attack and defense side, so we can round out the bulk profile just a little bit more there. And there you have it. That is the team we are bringing for the game against Owen here. Really, really excited for this battle. I hope you guys are excited as well. Hopefully we can get a win with this team. I think we've worked through a really, really strong game plan against the Chien-Pao and the ENAMORUS, and I think, once again, as I said, the rest of the team will kind of figure itself out once those two threats have been neutralized. But if you guys enjoyed the video, as always, make sure to like the video and subscribe. I will see you guys next time, and as always, have a wonderful day.